This is a reading from the Notebooks by Maria Valtorta, 1945 to 1950. September 2nd, 1945. Jesus then says to me, footnote 88, after the previous passage written on September 2nd, 1945. And that point which speaks about repossession by Satan refers to your cousin too. Footnote 89, see note 45. The devil found the house swept clean and empty, and returned with 7 other spirits, worse than the first one. For the time being, the greatest spirit has not yet entered, the one who dominated him and his servants for so many years. And the closing sentences are also valid for him. This second state of a converted person who gets perverted again, and so on up to improvement and healing, are no longer possible for him. It is painful, I know, but it is true. I have been speaking to you about this since November, because this descent began when he drifted away from you. You say, but all of you had even given me cause for hope. Yes, to give you an hour of relief in the bitterness surrounding you, so much of which came from them. But you have always seen him as he is. Remember, oh, there are so many like that. Should you still pray? Always, for it is a duty to pray for sinners as long as they are on this earth. Afterwards, Jesus says no more, and I, with my heart swelling for so many reasons, weep. I have been weeping since last night, even before receiving these words, for I think that their selfishness and false affections and mean spirit have reached the limit, and been disclosed completely, just as they have today, and because the presence of the guest I have in the house, a Mantuan of the same profession, and greatly resembling my cousin in language, gesture, and actions, reminds me more vividly of the image of Giuseppe in better days, when he was my friend and relative, not an enemy lacking all mercy. And since, in spite of their whole way of acting towards me, I still love them, my painful affection, swooning from the blows they have been unleashing constantly for the past 2 years, more and more forcefully, gets agitated, remembers, and suffers even more. And in their measureless pride, they would not believe this, but they will not even find out, ever. It would be futile. Believe me, this behavior of theirs, whose causes and material and spiritual details I am familiar with, is more painful than the sufferings now tormenting my hands as well, and giving me no respite even in sleep. But, never mind, and let's keep going. They managed to poison even the acts of kindness, which could bring me some comfort with the inevitable comparison I make between relatives and those who are not my relatives. And so be it. Footnote 90. We pass over 3,300 handwritten pages, September 4th to the 7th of 1945, containing 4 episodes from the second year of the public life. September the 8th, 1945. A feast day, and a day of remembrances, and a day of comparisons, a day then which would bring me sufferings. And since yesterday, Jesus has been anesthetizing me to suffering with his perceptible love. Yesterday, in order not to have me think about my circumstances, human and painful, he drew near and acted as my teacher, even as regards secular matters. Let me explain. Some days ago I was speaking with the young man I have as a lodger, footnote 91, perhaps the Mantuan referred to in the previous entry, who is about to enter the faculty of philosophy and letters, and is going through a turbulent period because of a clash between his former life as a young Catholic and his current inclination towards being a young communist, through the influence of classmates, and out of disgust over the failings of the clergy, which have been brutally manifested to him in these times of evacuations, base acts, and selfishness. And while talking about philosophy and letters, he asked me if I liked Socrates. Like him? Of course, on my own, I always liked him, but since Jesus started instructing me, I have liked him more because I understand him better. But I possess only Socrates' Euthyphro and the Apology. And when I was half a brute, they helped me not to degrade myself. Not to degrade oneself is already to prepare for elevation. The young man brought me the Phaedo, I have little time and little desire to read nonsense or serious works, but if I do not waste the little I have on nonsense, I always find a little to devote to serious reading, to take my mind off the usual work, too. For, it will seem strange, but it's true, while I desire this work with my whole self, from time to time I also feel the need to send myself out for a stroll through other thoughts, which are not supernatural ones, for the repose, as it were, of the part which is not spiritual, indeed, of the material and moral parts. I thus picked up the Phaedo, saying, if Jesus allows me to have it, it's because it's a sign I will derive some good from it. He has always acted that way. He has handed me or gotten me in touch with books or people I have derived good from, either for me or for them. I started to read, but it was not Maria Valtorta who was reading the Phaedo, as it was Maria Valtorta who once read Euthyphro. It was now, and is now, the spokesman. And through that phenomenon, which occurs to me when Jesus wills, the words are illuminated with a supernatural light, and enriched with supernatural references. Do you remember when I read those books by Ubaldi? Footnote 92. See the entry for November 14th in the notebooks, 1944, especially note 793. And since God so willed, I drew deeply Christian thoughts from them. You smiled at this property of mine for seeing, feeling, savoring, and understanding God alone, even in the works of a devil. But I can account for it quite well. It is because God has given me special, miraculous lenses which cancel out the wicked words and turn them into good ones. I think of the gospel. You will step on snakes and scorpions, and they will not harm you. Footnote 93. Luke chapter 10, verse 19. God is good. But, to get back to the Phaedo, I was reading and sensing the supernatural there, too, but I was unable to savor it in its truth. Jesus drew near me, on the right-hand side of my bed, close to the pillow, and, standing with his back slightly turned towards me, with his left hand on my shoulder, he gave me a very beautiful lesson, so beautiful that I was in ecstasy. I was blessed to feel so close to him, to the point of perceiving the warmth of his body, and I was blessed to hear his commentary, of which I would provide a very muddled version if I wanted to repeat it, but the light remained in me. I clearly remember only that sentence I mentioned to you about reminiscence. I spoke about this in Mary's childhood. Souls remember because they come from the light, and as a molecular lightning bolt, on being formed, gathers together the elements scattered in the sky and takes them with it, so they take particles of eternal intelligence with them. And the more transparent a soul is through grace, and active through will, the more it remembers. Not as the Greek philosophers say, for he is the possessor of just a semi-revelation, a barely glimpsed religion, and thus cannot have the whole truth. But as I say, the soul does not remember because it lives again. Rather, it remembers because it comes from the place where everything is known. He also spoke about returning to life, but I do not recall clearly. I know he said Socrates had followed this thought in a straight line as far as he could, and then, since he lacked knowledge of divine truth, he drifted off the straight line and doubled back downwards instead of continuing the ascent. He said, a second life is lived, indeed, but no longer on the earth, with the spirit in other realms, but I lose track of the rest. I would like him to dictate his explanations, since afterwards I will no longer have the book, and goodbye to everything. But I like even more to have him as a school teacher, in all branches of knowledge. He is a lucid and patient teacher, but the student is a dunce, and when he closes the book, I can no longer repeat anything. I remain in joy, and the wicked deeds of the world don't exist anymore. Last night I was smiling with my eyes closed, so blessed that Martha thought I had fallen into an ecstatic sleepiness. No, I was wide awake, but was hearing words able to take me into ecstasy, and to see I had no need for eyes. I remained with my sweet Jesus nearby, blessed, his gift, his mercy, for his Maria on the day of the Holy Child Mary. Footnote 94. We pass over about 41 handwritten pages, September the 8th and 10th, 1945, containing due episodes from the second year of the public life. September 14th, 1945. After the tremendous sufferings taking me to the verge of death, after 3 days of agony, after confession and communion this morning, and still feeling very bad, and the flesh would like only rest and silence while the soul tends towards the word, with an atrocious headache in the sleepy heaviness of an exhausted body, I see the hours of this day of the Holy Cross passing by. I consider that in the tremendous compito, footnote 95, see the notebooks 1944, especially note 312. I consider that in the tremendous compito period, I clung to the cross precisely as an ultimate support, so as not to be engulfed. I consider that I would have liked to have gone into St. Martin's Church on the return trip to say thank you to my Saviour. I consider that on the morning of the 10th, as I lay in agony, the summit of Calvary was depicted once again for me, with the 3 crosses, one stripped of its martyr, another bending towards the ground with its weight of martyrdom, and the other still upright, just as I saw them when Antonietta d'Albo, footnote 96, see the notebooks, 1944, note 425, was dying. I consider so many things. In addition, that Jesus helped me the other morning, acting as my nurse, more than everyone else, without taking away my pain. And only He knows that it is great, inconceivably great, but giving me peace. I consider that He surely suffered on having me suffer, but had to do so, because there is some soul that must be rescued or helped with this great pain. And while Jesus helped me, Satan tried to disturb me, and is trying. I consider and consider. I would immediately be left in peace, perhaps materially aided, if I agreed not to write what Jesus wants any more. But I cannot do this. If those who criticize or negate or deride bore in mind that I receive neither financial gain nor any other gain, but only fatigue and suffering of every kind from my work as a spokesman, and above all, if they experienced everything that I experience and suffer, they would at once understand that I must do what I do, because God so wills, and without receiving any material or moral good therefrom. September 16th, 1945. Will I be able to write and describe exhaustively? And what will happen afterwards? Anyone would wonder about this. I do not wonder, and go ahead, apologizing to you if my handwriting turns out to be more indecipherable than usual. Footnote 97. We pass over 22 handwritten pages, September 16th and 17th, containing 2 episodes from the second year of the public life. We also pass over the following notebooks, number 62, which contains only episodes from the second year of the public life, September 18th to 27th of 1945, and the first 59 pages of notebook number 63, September 28th to October 3rd, 1945, with 6 more episodes from the same cycle. And for today, footnote 98. She's referring to the episode she has just written down. And for today, too, with a great deal of patience on both sides, we have finished. 23 interruptions yesterday, 14 today. If Jesus' infinite patience failed to flow forth and be transfused from Him into me, I assure you that I would go mad. But He is so patient. He pauses and resumes, calm and smiling. I can no longer get impatient over the bothersome interruptions, forcing me to put down my notebooks and pen, perhaps for a few minutes, to conceal the mystery which is being fulfilled so sweetly and so secretly, and hide it from useless curiosity. And it is a great miracle to have made me into a patient person. I certainly am, for I know He is there to dictate, and He does not lose the thread. For when, as happened this morning, I am the one to write a letter or something else, I at once lose the thread and patience, even if I merely hear someone speaking near me. And Marta knows how often I wail, "Silence! Close the door!" when I am writing on my own. Footnote 99. We pass over about 11 handwritten pages containing the To Arbella episode from the second year of the public life. October the 4th, 1945. And as occurred last year on this anniversary, footnote 100, the anniversary of her mother, Iside Fioravanti, who died on October the 4th, 1943, Jesus shows me a little old lady who does not escape from Jesus. Do you know what pain this is for me? She alone, my mother, did not receive Jesus. That pain is always there, you know, a pain stronger than death itself, the pain I always feel when I see a soul that rejects, drifts away from the Lord. But it is accentuated even more as regards my mother, since, because of the love I have for her, I would have wanted her complete union with my Jesus. Tears, then, this year, too, and I do not ask, as I did last year, why didn't she love you? Jesus already gave me the answer last year. Footnote 101. See the entry for September 27th in the notebooks of 1944. And I weep. However, I don't know from what depths of heaven. I don't know who has spoken, who has manifested, and precisely because it is so immaterial that it is much more incorporeal than the usual voices, representing only thought which is illuminated and bestows peace. I think it is my guardian angel that is bringing them to me. These words come: Your parents have been placed in good hands. Your father rested his head on the lap of the apostle upon whom all power of absolution was conferred, and whose frank, affectionate goodness, with a common touch, you are familiar with. Peter came to take your father, for Peter could well understand your father's justice. Saint Joseph, Saint Peter, and you tremble for his sake? No, the seraphic one came to gather the soul of your mother in his wounded hands. Francis, the beloved of Jesus, the one to whom nothing is refused in heaven or by heaven. At heart your mother felt veneration for him, and he came. Don't you remember that he is said to save those who are devoted to him? It is true. Hope is set more brightly aflame. And who will I be gathered in by? I, who am so ill and gnawed at by Satan's torment, like a woodworm. He gives me no respite. Since he cannot catch me in any other way, he catches me like this, with the insinuation that I am the one who is writing, and it is not Jesus who shows and dictates. He knows that if he could convince me of this, I would retreat into desolation and the terror of having sinned, and I would be afraid of death and judgment. Oh, he really tortures me. He dazes me so with his constant voice that as soon as Jesus terminates visions and words, I lose all capacity to enjoy what my life is, that is, this supernatural dimension enveloping me and making me a spokesman. Do these episodes strike you who read them as very beautiful? I, too, once felt them to be so. Now, apart from the artistic side, I perceive nothing else in them. In vain I seek out and seek again the sentences which, while they were being spoken, took me so high up to beatitude. In vain I recall again attitudes whose sweetness so impressed me while I was seeing them. All is extinguished, all is ashes. Paradise, for this is paradise, has lost its splendor, or rather, it opens as long as my daily service as a spokesman lasts, inundating me with all its light, song, sweetness, and joy. And then, when the work is done, it closes hermetically, and I am enveloped and engulfed in mist and obscurity, with no other voices but those of doubt and negation, which prods and mocks. Isn't this a great affliction? And yet I don't want to despair or say, I'll stop since it's my own doing. No, it is not. Especially now, exhausted as I am, overwhelmed by so many things and ignorant of so many others, I could not do this in the state I am in, of physical weakness and moral dejection. I could feel only nausea towards this, and I would write nothing, rendered materially incapable of thinking, and morally nauseated by thinking. I turn on the radio at random and pause at Florence Radio at 5:30 p.m., something I never do, because I look for music and not words, and at that time, Florence broadcasts only words. I hear the woman announcer saying, in a few moments, we will be broadcasting the ceremony from the Assisi Basilica, which will close with the benediction imparted by His Eminence Cardinal Canali, with the relic of the blessing written by St. Francis. I listen. It is peace that is coming. It is my Saint Francis, my first comforter in compito. Footnote 102. See the Notebooks 1944, Note 312. Who is coming to bestow peace. October the 5th, 1945. I am now rising again from a tremendous crisis. You have seen it, and that is sufficient. But what may perhaps interest you is that precisely when I felt I was dying, and asked you for Holy Communion as a viaticum, not only was my pain relieved, and my condition rendered less serious, but I was comforted first by Jesus alone, then by Mary, and then in the order of their presence by St. John the Apostle, St. Peter the Apostle, my guardian angel, St. Francis, and finally St. Joseph. I would have so wished for St. Therese of the Child Jesus, but she did not come at all, and they remained even after you left. Jesus at the head of the bed on my right, Mary at the head of the bed on my left, saying, "Let us provide care for our daughter who is ill." The angel was worshipping. Strange. I always see him alongside the Virgin, standing close to my desk. St. Joseph, with his very gentle, somewhat sad look, sitting on a chair, bending forward slightly. St. Peter next to St. Joseph, standing between St. Peter and the angel. St. John. I don't know if you noticed when I smiled at the pale St. Francis, who was concealing himself so humbly, almost in the corner, next to the door. I felt cared for, to such a degree. But what suffering! When my friends come, though, Satan goes away. I am dying, Father. Sister Seviane is right. Footnote 103. See Notebooks 1944, Note 540. The crown is almost finished, and most of my sufferings are over. But who am I suffering so much for? I have offered my sufferings for a mother, Sister Saviane, Sister Gabriella. Footnote 104. See Note 4. The separated brethren, the young man staying at my house. Footnote 105. See the entry for September 2nd. And also you, Marta, and my relatives. But I don't have to suffer this way for any of them. Who for, then? I also apply this intention to the forgiveness granted to Giuseppe. Footnote 106. See Note 45. Forgiveness, I said, what existed before. Esteem is lost, but I want to depart without resentment towards anyone. I am happy to have specified everything regarding the house. When you are in agony, everything comes to mind and brings disturbance. Now, Marta is provided for. Everything is in order on earth, and in my soul is everything in order in such fashion that I will be at peace at the end of my life. The doctor grumbles because I write. He surely thinks my writing amounts to the romanticism of an old maid, and that serves to divert him from a proper diagnosis. He will end up leaning towards hysteria, in his mind designating my writing with the terms memory-related mania, outbursts of a deluded woman who wants at least to dream of what life has denied her and tells herself a lovely story. He says I go on consuming my brain. In reality, it is Jesus who consumes his brain. I do nothing but make marks on the paper to make his brain. But how can one say this to a doctor and set him on the right path? Can you tell me what we should do? Meanwhile, I am resting today, and life is thus coming to its close, and I have so much to correct and hear. I have written these pages because I think it is a good idea to have written them. Do you see how beautiful the handwriting is? Footnote 107. The 2 pages referred to in fact show the signs of a shaky hand. The next 21 handwritten pages are passed over, October 6th and 7th, 1945, containing 2 episodes from the second year of the public life, as well as the beginning of the episode entitled Mary and Matthias. October the 8th, 1945. Jesus then says, "Come, Maria, and I will console you with a light entirely for you. I will comment upon another side of the gospel sentence. You will step on snakes and scorpions, and not be harmed." Footnote 108. Luke chapter 10, verse 19, as in note 93. Whoever is full of me can step on all human doctrines, and live among those full of their poison, without being harmed. It should also be understood in this way. For if my blessed ones were once really immune from the bites of wild animals, as long as I so willed, from poisons and other dangers, my blessed ones, now, who live in the corrupt atmosphere of an idolatrous and demoniac society, are equally preserved from all evil by my will. They are in me, and I in them. There is no room for anything else, and no poison attacks where my love, our love, of Jesus and of Jesus' beloved ones neutralizes all poison. Be at peace, little beloved. I gather in your sufferings, tears, and prayers for all. You got excited because a stone was found near Bethlehem, with reference to my crucifixion. It is a stone. It is of use for the proud, for nothing more. Much more, much more is the lofty remembrance of my passion, which I have given to men of faith through your labor. But man, who will believe in the arid and uncertain stone, will be arid and uncertain in the face of the document of my pain, which I have given you for him. Forget about the stones, and feed on the tears of my passion, which you well know. May my passion be your comfort. Be at peace. Footnote 109. We pass over the remaining 12 handwritten pages, October 11th, 1945, in this notebook, containing the episode entitled, I Would Like the Orphans to Have a Mother, from the second year of the public life as well as the first 11 pages of the next notebook, October 12th, 1945, containing the episode entitled, In Naim, in the House of Daniel Restored to Life. October 13th, 1945. Last night at 11 p.m., while I sought sleep and rest, and everyone was sleeping, Jesus appeared to me, as he always does, dressed in a robe of white wool. In his right hand he was holding a long, rather slender metal chalice. He drew near to me from the right-hand side of the bed. He smiled, but sadly. His smile encouraged me, though, for I grasped that he was not sad about me, but rather was coming to me to seek relief. He placed his left hand on my shoulder and drew me to himself, while with his right hand he brought the chalice up to my lips, saying, Drink. The chalice was full of a liquid looking like pure water. I glimpsed it in the instant when Jesus offered it to me, forcing me to drink. I drank. What bitterness! Oh, it is certainly not the inebriating chalice of Holy Thursday, filled with the living blood of my Lord. Sweet, mellow blood from which I would never have withdrawn my lips. Footnote 110. See the entries for March 29th and 30th and March 31st of 1945. This is water of such a nauseating bitterness that no medicine possesses it. It bites the throat and stomach, making it turn over with revulsion. It brings tears to your eyes and lasts like parching thirst from burning acid. Jesus has me drink just one sip, and then withdraws the chalice and explains, This is the chalice I drank in Gethsemane. I drank it all, to the dregs, and the dregs are more bitter. And this is the chalice which men's sins fill up each day, and these then head towards heaven to have me go on drinking thereof. But I can no longer drink anything but infinite love. And then, you see, I offer it to the generous, to the beloved ones. Thank you for this sip. I will go now to other dear souls. I bless you for the sake of the Father, myself, and eternal love. And he goes off, leaving my mouth and stomach searing with poison, and my soul filled with peace. Footnote 111. We pass over the remaining 97 pages in this notebook, October 13th to 24th of 1945, containing the last 12 episodes and the conclusion of the second year of the public life, as well as the following notebooks, number 65, containing the first 12 episodes from the third year of the public life, October 29th to November 8th.